maintain some sort of leadership, because the era of global leadership by single power, I think, is finished. We exercised it. We're the only ones ever to exercise it. There was never a power that controlled the world. We came closest to it. In fact, in some respects, we did after World War II. But now that's disappearing. We cannot sustain it. But by being intelligent and being still stronger than one or the other, we can assert a position of influence and protect our security. But that requires a great deal of intelligence. And that sometimes is not an adequate supply insofar as our leadership is concerned. So that is a problem of our own making. But if we can handle it, I think we can maintain some degree of equilibrium in world affairs over the next 20 or 30 years, by which time, and I'm sorry to speak so lengthily, by which time I think the complexities of international politics will increasingly be mixed with the challenges of global change. And that's going to become increasingly the overshadowing threat to everyone. And I really don't know what to make of it, but I think it's going to be extremely difficult to mount the kind of response that probably will be necessary to help humankind survive by the end of the next century. And in any case, it will be something from which no one is likely to benefit very much, so that the sense of threat and danger and insecurity will rise dramatically, probably in the world at large, and particularly in those countries which are less immediately threatened by the consequences of global change. And we'll, as a result, have a totally new game, totally new set of issues to confront, for which we are very little prepared.
China and Russia have had very different imperial traditions. Both of them have had imperial relationships in Central Asia. How do you think about this new competition as both of them are trying to seek, some dominance in that region? And is this something that we should be concerned about?
Well, my sense is that the Chinese are not overtly seeking domination, but they understand quite well that one of the major consequences of the One Belt, One Road strategy is going to be increasing Chinese domination over what was once the Soviet Central Asia, the Soviet East, maybe even parts of the Soviet South. The Russians were an empire in which monarchical rule was mixed with religious domination. And that created a kind of rightful justification in the eyes of the heads of the government, but also of much of the public, of the existing status quo. That was shattered by the emergence of the Soviet Union. That was worsened by the crimes committed by Stalin. And it was also resented simply by the fact that it was not a union, but an imperial arrangement, so that the increasingly politically awakened non-Russians in that context welcomed, without fits of excitement, but truly welcomed the dissipation of the Soviet Union. And for the moment, and for probably several decades to come, the expansion of China into that area where all the stands are is quietly welcomed by the people in power, even though they probably at the same time fear the overwhelming presence of Chinese growing and fearing it as a possible future danger of even greater depth. But in the meantime, a necessary reality, because they don't want the Russians to come back. And there's very little the Russians can do about that.
Let me return to this issue of this new Silk Route. We're calling this, in the Brzezinski Institute, we're calling this the reconnecting of Asia. When the European Empire started in the 17th century, there was an impulse to pull the focus to the coastline. Obviously, because global commerce was pulling people to the coastline. That's changing, and now we're seeing Asia look internally to itself. This raises an interesting question about America. America is a Pacific power, but not an Asian power. How do you see America being involved in this reconnecting of Asia?
I think what the Chinese are doing at the same time is increasing their capacity to influence geopolitically Europe by what we have been talking about, the new road through Central Asia, while at the same time, of course, increasing their capacity by sea lanes in reaching the rest of the world and benefiting from it by competitive prices, investments, and so forth. So I think the Chinese are operating on a maximum scale to make themselves felt worldwide. And the leadership of China, not just political, but particularly economic, is taking massive and skillful advantage of that situation. But it's a two-way street. We're also benefiting from it because we gain the opportunity of striking deals with the Chinese, perhaps contributing to more stability rather than less in Asia, although that is to be tested because there are some major uncertainties pertaining to North Korea here, or even to the very unfortunate handling of the obstructions that have developed along the sea lanes. I think both China and the United States have played this very badly and are contributing unnecessarily to tension and possibly even collisions of some sort. So we have to be careful how we handle that. But I think the basic reality is that the division of the world into kind of totally separate, autonomous entities and other areas controlled by sometimes foreigners is coming to an end. We are getting one interconnected world. And in it, China and its scale and its skill is making itself felt, and that will probably continue.